Welcome to the session, everybody. This is an exciting session in terms of the both the topic and the panelists with fantastic backgrounds and with the range of the repertoire of brands and verticals that they come from. What we are going to discuss today is about the whole thing of uh, delivering value to customers through relentless innovation in the post-COVID world. And there are various aspects of this. I think we have all seen lots and lots of action happening as far as various retail brands and retail formats are concerned. We have seen, people attempting various things. I think we are all also. I think most of us will agree that we are in a state of flux in more ways than one, and I think we are right in the middle of things which are evolving. I think everybody is trying to find solutions, and it is very interesting today to actually to look at what solutions the panelists today will talk about in terms of their own businesses. Uh, I am personally looking forward to a whole lot of learning because it's enriching to hear the various things that are being done. And as I said, because we are in a state of flux, some of it will work, some of it will not work, some of it is already working. But I think to get to understand from the panelists their views on what is going on in their own industry, in their own company, will be very useful. Uh, I think we've been all talking about in this world, what do we do in terms of what's the new normal? What are the kind of experiences that the customer is looking at? What is the role of digital? How do we make things happen? Simple things like how do we get one view of inventory? Yeah, simple challenge. Yeah, how do we get view of inventory? Uh, how do we enhance fulfillment capabilities? Because very clearly, the whole structure of the way things are happening and the way customers are ordering or fulfilling their needs has changed. Uh, what is the role of the different technology solutions? And I think all of us receive every week, every day, we receive multiple mails or contacts talking about different solutions which are available. So how do you wade your way through so many solutions which are emerging? Yeah, and how do you work your way through to find out what is relevant to you? Then, in terms of how do you, for most of the panelists here are from backgrounds where they have lots and lots of retail stores. So, if you have retail stores, how do you make them ready for the omni capability? Yeah, how do you get that done? What's the role of conversational commerce, if at all there is a role? Yeah, are we ready? What are the skill sets that are required? Are we ready? Do we have the skill sets in our own organizations? Yeah, how are we tapping into those skill sets to make this happen? So it's going to be a fascinating one, and without taking much time, I would actually start taking on and requesting some of the people to start actually talking about some of the things that they're doing. To start with, somebody who does not have a retail chain but is right in the midst of this whole experience is Arvind, who's from HCL Commerce, and we'll go to the retailers after that. And maybe Arvind, you can start off with one of the key areas which you would have great expertise in. How does one choose relevant technology to build our core ecosystem in terms of the customer experiences required? From your perspective, how does one do that?
Yeah. Thanks, Himanshu, for the question, and thanks to RAI for this, I would say, humbling opportunity to be in the midst of retail leaders with so many years of experience and listening to your thoughts, right? I represent HCL Commerce. So we are working with a lot of retailers, through this pandemic. Even before, there were some conversations or some work that was happening in the labs, which have been kind of, fast, which have been taken forward to the front line. So I think when you talk about retailers building a core, one of the things that we have seen is retailers choosing a platform that is, very scalable and at the same time very agile, right? I think one of the panelists made this point in yesterday's discussion as well. The next 3 years or 2 years, I think retailers will be looking to maintain and protect that core of core ecosystem that they have built. So in that regard, the main requirement is, an e-commerce platform doesn't come with all the solutions, right? It doesn't come with, say, 3D rendering. It doesn't come with, say, augmented reality, right? So it's all really about how do you choose a scalable platform. To give one of the examples, in India, pre-COVID, one of the grocery chains, biggest one, is on our platform. It was doing a few $1,000s a day. And during when the lockdown started, the orders shot up to almost a lakh in a day, right? So whether the platform has that much of a capacity to support scale, and in a few years that 1 lakh may grow into millions, right? So with COVID accelerating the e-commerce adoption by 3 years, is the platform really scalable, right? So I think scalability is the main aspect, and there are sorry. Yeah, and there are some platforms which are scalable, and there are some which are very agile as well. So we believe that the platform has to really adapt to your business and not the other way around. So, for example, when there is a retailer, someone like yesterday, I think Dr. Mohan from Clarks was mentioning a use case where customers sitting at their home would like to experience the shoe buying experience at his home, right? So the 3D rendering, the augmented reality part of it, obviously will not come out of the e-commerce platform. There are a lot of innovative companies who do that. So how do you really integrate that with the commerce experience and make that online experience very seamless, right? So is your platform really microservices based, API based, which can really integrate with any kind of third-party innovations in the market? That's, I think, another core capability that retailers are looking at worldwide.
Thanks, Arvind, for that. And I think that sets a good perspective in terms of the someone who's in the midst of all this, but who's not running an actual retail chain. And that will actually bring me to the first panelist here, not in any particular order, but I thought it'll be interesting, is, one of the categories which was really not opened up for quite a while is the salon business, for obvious reasons. Yeah. So, and I thought that'll be a good starting point where a business which is largely based on touch and feel, how does a business like that cater to the new normal? So, for you, Bhupesh, how would you define the new normal in the case of a salon business, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, Himanshu. You're right. I think we shut down before the lockdown because we knew this is happening. And what was unique to our businesses, we are one of the few businesses that actually is in very close physical contact with the customer. And which was a huge advantage to us. We were never really affected by e-commerce because you had to come to the salon and you really couldn't replace the service. And suddenly what was a strength to us became a disadvantage because we had to shut down some services before the lockdown. We had to shut our stores before the lockdown started. And we were almost the last to open. But the interesting part is one big advantage, or let's say two big advantages that we have in our salon business is one, it is still a natural need. With due respect to all the other panelists, you don't need to go out in today's post-COVID world to go and buy one more shirt. But fortunately, if you have reached the level of grooming, come what may, whether you did it at home or you felt the need of going to a parlor or a salon, the need of going to a salon is still there at whatever level you want to do it. Okay. In the Zoom conferencing world, it's fun that all services are above the neck, all the pedicures have stopped because it's not being visible anymore in the video world. But that's interesting, right? So one thing we did was we actually took the opportunity to reach out to our customers. Because in our business, when you come in and check into a salon, you identify yourself right at the beginning of the shopping journey. So I know exactly who my customers are. I know their needs. I know what they've been doing in the past. I know when they last visited, all that we know. We then enable the entire workforce to actually reach out to their regular clients. And when we reached out to them and talked to them, they said, yeah, but the salon is closed. I said, yes, ma'am, we know that. But we're just reaching out to you is all is well, anything to be done. And I think with permission, we said, look, if you're okay, we can switch to a video call. And we moved that to a video call with permission. And then she would say that, look, my hands have become too dry because of too much sanitizer being used. My hair is out of control. Can you help me, guide me in a haircut? And we were doing video consultations. That was completely new to us. But because we do consultation in the store, now doing it on video with permission, guiding her was very, very different and fascinating. The interesting part was very often the solution we had to give was something that from ingredients that she had at home. You know, the traditional stuff that, our grandmoms used to use is what we had to guide her. This is what you do on your face and put haldi or put whatever it is. And it was, some of our own team said, but aren't we killing out our own business in the future? If we get her used to doing home remedies, will she even come back to the salon? Clients told us, I will not even come back. I said, fair enough. Currently, you are more important than what we are doing. I think that connect that we established during that period really helped us post-lockdown when it opened up and people reached out to us. That was one very interesting thing we did. We called it a call as well activity, and we did a call as well. But from there, see how it evolved. And I think how technology played a fantastic role. Clients reached out to us saying that we are prepared to attend webinars. So we then targeted them through social marketing, gave in their needs. They clicked in, they opted in for something. Yes, I have dry skin. I want to do some home remedy. I have a hair fall. And then we held client webinars on a regular basis. So all the people came in there, 15 to 30, 40 people. One of our technical experts would address the client webinar. It was so nice to connect and completely possible during technology only. We never even thought of it, pre-COVID. But I think small things like this, where we managed to connect back to the customer, we moved a call center. Okay, I mean, we had, like many companies, had outsourced a call center. Just 2-3 months before the lockdown, we had insourced a captive call center. Suddenly, in 2 days' time, we had to move from an on-premises solution to an offline solution. All the girls logged in from home, but retained the touch with the customer using smarter technology. I think those things work pretty well for us as a starting point. There are many more points we did. How do we then use our technology to solve a business problem and yet, I said, retain the soul of the process? Ours is a people's business, ours is a relationship business. You get hooked on to a salon, you get hooked on to a stylist, you are there for years together. So we had to retain the human touch and not automate out all our processes. So set up our processes, technology enabled it, but leave the human being in behind the process. Leave the soul behind the process. I think that's what we did and did reasonably well, I think, because customers gave us very, very nice feedback that this worked for us. Over to you.
So thanks for that, Bhupesh. So the next question actually that I want to pose is to Ankur Bhatia. And sorry, there was a nomenclature confusion that's sorted out now. So Ankur is from Bestseller. And of course, they have fantastic brands. They've got Vero Moda, they've got Jack and Jones only, and so on and so forth. The question for you is that in the new normal, where you're trying to find, let's say, tech solutions to the consumer experience that you're creating, since you have so many great brands, are you trying to look at format-specific solutions, and can you illustrate that, or is it an overarching, all brands put together tech solutioning that you're looking at, and how has it worked for you?
Sure, Himanshu. Thanks a lot, and sorry for this nomenclature thing initially. We sorted that out. Thanks for having me here, first of all, and all the viewers. I think technology has played a great role in the new normal. And what we have kept in mind at Bestseller is that at the center of this entire change and this entire pandemic for the last few months, there is this customer who's pretty agnostic to where he wants to go and consume your brands. So he might want to buy from offline channels, sometimes from online channels, and so on. So the thought process which we have followed is that we have to give a single view to the customer wherever he wants to go and buy. Now, that was a thought process actually pre-pandemic also. And that is what helped us navigate these tough times, because we were sort of ready when all our stores were shut in April and malls were shut, and even online was shut to a large extent in April. But at the back end, we were kind of preparing for the May reopening, and we were kind of, from a technology perspective, having common pools of inventory and and having access to all the online channels, not only our website, but we were fairly placed at partner websites also. So we were kind of ready in terms of servicing whatever demand was left in the market for the customer. So it was not channel specific to answer your question, but it was kind of being ready for the customer wherever he wants to consume our brands. So it was customer focused rather than channel focused.
Wonderful. That's interesting. And actually that brings me to Nikhil, who runs William Penn. And one of the interesting things that they have done, and that would be very, 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 I think, fascinating for all of us to know, is that rather than really going with the horizontal players, by horizontal, of course, we all know, we mean the big marketplaces like Amazon and Flipkart, etc. You have decided to pursue an aggressive path on actually creating your own experience for the customers. Yeah. And in some way or the other, you are therefore competing with the horizontal marketplaces. And if you can take us through the strategy, how it is working, what are the pitfalls of that, what is the exciting part, how does it work for you? We can't hear you, Nikhil. Nikhil, we can't hear you. Can others hear him?
No, we can't.
No. We can't hear you, Nikhil. So maybe once you get the audio back, we'll probably give it one more try and then let Nikhil get his audio back. That actually brings me to Nikhil. Maybe you can try out the audio part, and once you get that right, we'll come back to that question. Let me move on to Sujoy Mitra. Yeah, and Sujoy, actually, there's something fascinating, Sujoy, that you are even in your designation, which is Head of Business Technology, and I think that's quite interesting, and maybe you can throw some light on that, because that's very interesting nomenclature. But my question is not on that. The question actually for you is that for the hometown business, yeah, which is all about customers coming and experiencing and seeing all your products and buying, and we all know we have been all customers at hometown. With the customers largely not willing to visit the stores, or some of them willing, some of them not willing. Yeah. How do you bring the offline experience to the customers online? How do you do that for a category like yours? So over to you, Sujoy.
Hey, hi. Himanshu, can you just put on the video as well? So I guess. Yeah. So thanks, Himanshu, for bringing this up. So yeah, I mean, you very well put it. I mean, it's a high engagement business, and touch and feel is something that's key to our business. So couple of ways that we have done this. Point number one is, so there is a concept, I mean, while these are jargons, but effectively, so the concept called co-browsing. Effectively, it means is even today, somebody can visit our website, and when they're actually, if they like a product, they can actually fix up a conversation with the live agent there, and then you get and then you effectively get an appointment scheduled with the respective stores wherein the product is there. So that's the easiest way in which you can give an experience as close to real as possible. Very soon we will be going live with a much more integrated piece wherein one can fix up a schedule whether the live agent is available or not. So you can go ahead. The customers can request for an appointment at a certain time, and then there is a live co-browsing that's happening. So you might have liked some product from the web, but it might not be the last product. That might be the product that you would actually finally choose to have when it comes to procurement. Now, while that's the front, so there are two parts to it. One is how do you actually connect the online traffic move it to offline, get a human connect there. The second part is also about how do you ease out the procurement process, the reverse flow. So that's when what we have done. So we completely believe. So the way we have built our entire infrastructure is it's completely omni-channel. It's one single platform which has end-to-end connect with all the end-to-end connect with all the systems, whether it's our ERP, whether it is our point of sales, with our logistics, with our even with our online channels. Now that helps that when you actually have once you have done the co-browsing with the customer, then even if you want to pursue the customer to procure, I mean, it's all, since it is all integrated, it goes back to, I mean, the procurement can still be done from the online channel without the customer having to visit the store. Okay, so that's the level of integration. That's the level of omni-channel capability that we are talking of. Well, that's the infrastructure. Then, but at the end of the day, it is about easing the process of showing what is you're trying to buy. Some of those information, of course, there's one part to it which is all data, wherein customer would get to see what furniture they are purchasing. But then at the end of the day, things like furniture is also, to an extent, after a point it gets technical, and that's where the co-browsing helps. And now that you smoothen the reverse process, that completely smoothens up. There is another aspect to it. The other aspect to it is during the delivery process, because that's another process wherein, because in many a times what happens is that all said and done, what we are trying to do is you take away their touch. What we are trying to do is simulate the feel in the co-browsing process. Now, how do you actually bring the touch process very close? So that's when we introduced a process called same time return. So effectively, you go ahead and deliver. And if you don't like it when the fitment is being done, or when the fitment is done, you return it. So effectively, even though it is not a real-time touch and feel, but for the customer, you are making the decisions at the right moment. During the source, when you are scouting through when you are browsing through the merchandise, to when you are actually installing it at home. Okay, and when you mix it up with operational processes with respect to healthy, because there you also need the healthy aspect of it also comes into play with COVID into the play when it comes to delivery and when it comes to fitment. Now, when all of that is put into place, the customer starts feeling safe. They are comfortable. They know. I mean, they can definitely, if they don't like a merchandise, they can return it even after the fitment is done. They can return it right away. Okay, so it gives an end-to-end comfort. So I guess one is the infrastructure part, which of course from an IT perspective we take care, and the other is mix it up with innovation and process excellence.
Interesting. Anything you want to say about this interesting designation of head business technology?
I guess it comes from the thought process that, see, many a times what happens as CIOs, we get stuck up. So there are two aspects to it. One is the projects aspect and the other is the operational aspect. And we can't deny either. But many times what happens is we get stuck up with the operational aspect. The idea was to focus a lot on the projects part of it, so that and to have a long view rather than a tactical view. And hence the designation is more about putting the focus, wherein we are more focused on understanding what the process is, understanding what are the information requirements are to actually enable any process, and hence put together the data, put together the underlying technology solution, and build IT around it. So yeah, that explains it.
Interesting. Okay, Nikhil, have you found your voice?
Yes, I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Anyway, thank you, Himanshu. Happy to be on this panel. Coming to your question, Himanshu, yes, we have focused on our own platform. And to be honest, we have done both actually you cannot ignore the horizontal players, and they bring in the traffic that your platform cannot. Having said that, we have spent most of our efforts and energies on our own platform figuring out what is it that can differentiate us from these large horizontal players. And with soul searching, we came up with the top 3, one of them being personalized service as the customer browses. So, like Bhupesh was earlier saying, when somebody is browsing our website, we have a pop-up which says, can we help you buy a product? Can we help educate you about the products that we have while you're browsing, either through audio or video? And that has worked very well for us. More than 15% of customers who are browsing are opting for that. That is number 1. Number 2, we have tried to offer value addition in terms of personalization of products. The products that we sell are writing instruments, premium stationery, accessories. And the fact that we can offer personalization services to our customers has meant a lot to our customers, because very often products such as ours are being gifted. So today, more than 40% of our orders are being personalized, which no other horizontal player can offer. So that's been a huge edge for us. And number 3, we have worked really hard on our customer experience while browsing and post buying as well. So that's helped us a very big deal. A small use case of, trying to help a customer buy a refill for his writing instrument has helped us connect with so many hundreds of customers, and that becomes a great starting point as a conversation. So, small little use cases like this have really taken our online sales to the next level. So, you got to look at how you can differentiate yourself from competition. And in this case, competition comes from every other online player who's trying to sell to the customer. So yeah, that's one part of it. Of course, technology is the other part of it, and we will come to that a little later.
Thanks for that, Nikhil. That actually brings me, because we've been discussing now this bit on online and Omni and experiences, etc. But let's go to the person who actually probably runs a retail chain, which is largely focused on people coming to the stores even now, and they're coming in large numbers, which is More Retail. So we have Lovedeep here from More Retail, and their heart still and soul lies in what we all know, which is serving customers at the retail point. Yeah. So maybe Lovedeep, because everybody has been talking about Omni and external digital experience, if you can take us through what all have you done in the retail experience. And there's lots that I know that you've done, which is very different in this post-COVID world compared to what used to be earlier.
So, thank you, Himanshu, and thank you, RA, and everybody to having me. I think this is a very good opportunity, and also pulls you out from a regular routine, right? So I'm using this as a... Thank you very much. But I think we had a very precarious situation, right? So our demand went up, I would say, by 5x, and supply was broken like minus 10x, right? So our situation was to kind of balance, both, and ensure that we keep our shops running. So, I think such situations put a big, question mark on the ability to how you will run the business, right? So we had a very interesting conversations, and like every other organization talk about technology, digital, we also had a lot of conversation how the technology, and everybody remember in April, everybody was trying to build an app for them, and the WhatsApp technologies and things like those. So I think at that point in time, we decided that let's do something that we are best at, right? And let's not digress, and let's not move the organization something which is completely uncharted and unknown. So very small part of our organization was actually working on building these apps and all those technologies. But rest of the organization job was to just fulfill the demand, right? So half of our organization job was to kind of figure out an alternate channels to bring the product back to the store, and that was one of the most important job that as an organization we took over. including people from other fields of, even my team members or marketing, was doing a job of supply chain. And I think very proud of what they did. And other part of the organization was actually doing what they're best at, right? They were just making sure the product is, all the essentials are delivered at home. And we didn't bother about which way people are reaching out to us. We have opened our phone lines. We added, classic channels of phone ordering. We gave store managers, step numbers. And for first 3 months, I think the best output that we got is actually people picking up a phone and telling us, "Bhai, ये 10 list की item है, हम आपके WhatsApp पे भेज रहे हैं, इसको deliver कर दीजिए आज शाम तक." And I think that model has actually built immense amount of trust on the brand, right? So I think I personally, if you ask me, this is something that we are very proud and more that, we ensure that we don't digress the organization building apps and things like those, which, neither a customer nor, the store team is comfortable with. And took a while for us to kind of sustain. So we also picked up our priorities. But now that, we are 3 months, we are like 6 months old in the system, and we know this monster very well, at least, from what it does to us in the business. Now we have literally moved into an omni-channel. Now we have strengthened, because it also gave us a time to stabilize our information technology and our infrastructure. So after now about 3 months of the pandemic, I mean, April, May, June, the focus was to kind of make sure the products are delivered at home, whichever way customer reaches out to us. Now we are ensuring that, if there is, a use cases on WhatsApp, use cases on app, or use cases on a web page, there is an opportunity available. But essentially, Himanshu, the focus, if you ask me, I don't want to give you big jargons. The focus was to ensure that, the basic mass India is fulfilled by the way that they want to kind of, reach out to us. We did not create something, new for them to become, uncomfortable with. And now we are seeing that people are becoming more used to on the app ordering. People are becoming comfortable on doing a click and collect. So we are opening those channels one by one, and we are seeing there is a traction there.
I actually wanted to ask you, I went to your, I think a month and a half, 2 months back, I went to your store in Sakar Nagar, which is one of the large stores that you have. And it was very interesting to see that there were lots and lots of customers in the grocery section. And when I went to the first floor, there was hardly anybody there. Did you do anything, first floor, Sakar Nagar has got apparel on the first floor. So, did you do anything to drive this traffic, which is already in your store, but doesn't seem to be going to other sections? Are there any insights? Is there anything that you did to help that?
So what happened was we kind of moved along with the customer, right? So we did not try to oversell anything, because then it just defocused the whole organization. So the idea was to pick up the relevant categories, like in the general merchandise and apparel. So work from home section was a very, very critical. And most of our online catalogs were actually focusing on about 30-40 items at best of the assortment of 500 plus in the category. So the entire, because see what happens is it's also a function of the supply and all of those things, right? So we wanted to make sure that whatever is required and relevant at this point in time, everybody's focusing on that. So therefore, the item, even the catalog, even now the catalog is about 50-55 products at best, right? And what we start seeing sometime in the mid-June and all, people start doing a revenge buying, as we call, right? So they started coming and buying shirts. They started coming irrespective of whether you require or not. And therefore, then we start picking up those aspects and start adding into the catalog. But as far as from the physical store point of view, we did not alter anything significant. We just went on with the flow as it progresses from a consumer insights point of view. What was very interesting is that, and that I personally feel it has worked very well for us, is we had a very open channel on consumer feedback coming in. So we had 3 different channels of consumer feedback coming into us through NPS, through outbound calling, through customer complaints, and through in-store feedback. And that has helped us to kind of keep moving ahead with the demand very fast. And that's what actually has also helped us to build the kind of assortment that they were looking at, build the kind of service that they were looking at. A lot of aged customers were very, very uncomfortable for an obvious reason, right? So we built a special phone line, for those customers, because, we had of course, we cater to millions of customers on a monthly basis. So we had a very specific hotline, service to only dedicated for them. So those are the things started really playing well for us. And right now, as I speak, I think September looks very promising. We're almost at about 85-90% back to pre-COVID on the grocery. Of course, lifestyle is going to pick up post Diwali and festivals. But I think we're seeing that trust that we've developed. We utilize this opportunity to not being opportunistic is helping us.
Thank you, Navdeep, for that insight. And last but not the least is somebody who's running one of my favorite brands, Fossil. So that brings me to Sumit. And Sumit, I think one of the things which I am actually keen to know that in the environment that we are in, and just to understand how your mind would work in terms of arriving at this, there are so many technology solutions which are available in the market, and every week you get so many new people pitching with new solutions. In terms of your business prioritization and your own customer experience, how do you figure out what of these will you take as part of your journey, which will make a difference to your business and to your customers?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all. Thanks, Himanshu. Well, definitely there are a lot of things which people are speaking, and it's very important for the brand to choose the right ones. What worked for us, I will share today with all of you. Firstly, I guess get the tech in right inside the store, because there is 35% of the walk-ins that was there last year coming in the store. So you have to handle them well. And I think 2-3 things which you can do inside the store is get the walk-in counters up, the temperature check which you can do through tech, and the contactless payment, get that in place. Customer coming in the store shouldn't feel, oh, the contactless payment is not there. So that's the first thing which is of the list. The second is definitely the writing on the wall is you have to go online. We did it 2 years back. We were in the marketplace in Amazon, Flipkart. We are also doing our omni-channel, adding things like Ropes, Bopes. So that's a writing on the wall that you have to go online through omni-channel, through Amazon, Flipkart. What you have to do well is, how do you manage your inventory? How do you manage the returns? I think that those are the things which we are doing better. The third thing that we did better was that we launched after COVID was contactless commerce, and we did it through WhatsApp. We built our WhatsApp chatbot, and what we did was it was a link. You send the link to the consumer, he presses it, and the WhatsApp thing opens. There were various options that we gave them. You can book appointment in the store. You can go through the live catalog, place buy there. You can do video selling there. And lastly, we also kept the option of chat with the store associate. So what I want to share with you all is 2 things. One is the look and feel of the WhatsApp. We made sure that the look and feel, the background that you are texting, that gives you a brand experience. It gives you the Fossil vintage feeling, the Fossil brand feeling. So even when we are doing a tech, when we are doing a WhatsApp, we wanted to give a brand experience to the consumer. And lastly, you all will be also surprised to know that though the consumer bought through catalog and he booked the appointment, a lot of people chose the last option, which is chat with the store associates. So they had a chat with the store associate and then they availed everything. So what I'm trying to highlight here is it's very important to keep the people connect on. Ultimately, we are in the retail business. Tech will come as a help. Tech will come as a provider, but it cannot be we vanish completely and let the consumer talk with the laptops and the mobiles and the WhatsApp. So I think the people connect on, brand experience is very important. Last thing which I would like to stress, and I think the retailer, it doesn't require any investment. go Google friendly. 65% of the search are originating from Google. And I can tell you right away, you type the brand name or the store name, most of the time you will see the brands are not listed properly, the address is not right, the timing is not right. You open a Google business account for all your stores and make sure that all these, you have the store pictures, you have the store videos. And lastly, encourage all the consumers to give reviews in Google. The more the positive reviews, the more the store will come up in search. So I think the days are gone when we are giving feedback to the machines that are in the store. So I think all this is very important and has really helped us to reach to the business in the level of 70-75% of last year. And lastly, train your staff to manage this, means managing this online video selling. I think they are kind of going clueless. We have to give them proper training, hand-holding to manage this online part of the business, to manage how live streaming, to manage video selling. I think that's very important. So all these has really worked for us, and happy to share with you all today. It's giving us great results in difficult times also.
That's wonderful to hear, Sumit. And before we take it to the audience for their questions, I have one question which anybody can attempt. And I think that's one of the key ones and key challenges that we face. In the post-COVID world, the customer is changing, the experiences required is changing, and in terms of the new normal, it's quite different from what we had earlier. And the question is that in terms of at least the back-end teams, I'm not talking so much about the store teams, but the back-end teams, can anybody touch upon, are there skill gaps, significant skill gaps? And if there are skill gaps, how are we covering those skill gaps for the new normal? Or is it that we have the skills and it's all fine? We can do with whatever skill sets we have. Or is there something, are there a set of skills which are missing? And I'm asking this because we have been all as retailers, as you know, while we've been doing what we do, it's largely something which is to do with what we do in the front end. I think more or less people have variations of for their own business, what they've been doing for quite a few years, and then you improve the format a bit. And then, of course, your back end in terms of how you procure and how you source and how you design and so on and so forth. But now in the new normal, there are new skill sets which are required. Yeah. And do you find any skill set, whoever wants to take it, skill set gaps, and how are you tackling this?
I think, hi, so I'll just take that one quickly. So there were skill set gaps. I would not say that there weren't before the pandemic hit us. But how the pandemic has helped us is that the backend team has quickly readapted themselves and have adopted the new technology solutions which we have kind of, which were already in the pipeline. So whether you talk about planning solution or you talk about dashboarding in terms of showing data to people in the organization, they've just kind of adopted the challenge, and they've been really fast in accepting the new normal from their own perspective also. So yes, the front-end team has seen a lot of change, but the back-end team also has kind of taken on to this challenge, and the pandemic has helped purely on that side. So whatever we are planning over the next 2 to 3 years, now we are confident that the technology adoption of all those solutions will be good, because people are now already a little bit hands-on, especially from a retail perspective, where probably technology percolation was not that great compared to other industries. I think it has helped.
Can I build on that?
Yeah. Yes,
almost
please.
3-4 years ago, we took a company decision that you cannot recruit anybody at any level unless they have a smartphone. And there were a lot of people right in the front who didn't have a smartphone. So we enabled a consumer durable scheme to buy a smartphone. And why was that? Because every technician at every level could see their appointments on the screen, could see the client data on the phone. They knew what revenue they were making. They knew what incentive they're likely to get. It was integrated with the learning programs. Everything came on the phone. It is interesting that our salons have iPads for the last 10 years, right? We had to teach them how to use an iPad. The guys had to come suddenly, buy a smartphone, then get to know iPad. But it was something that we've been doing the last 3 years now. And it has hugely helped us now. because communication is so much easier. You had connect with the client. We integrated that. So switching from there, their own app, an in-house app, knowing what is there, calling a customer from there. We are experimenting with number masking so that doesn't happen. So the skills were there. Plus, we still have some checklists in the store, which is the traditional pen and paper thing. During COVID, all of that came out of the app. So then you could do your regular support staff would do the washroom checklist, but was on an app. And those are things that suddenly transformed everything. Fortunately, we had been doing the home of the last 3-4 years. And I think that mindset to use technology is there. But we realized the washroom checklist was never on an app. Suddenly that also came to an app, So while we've been doing a lot of stuff on the customer facing side, internal store ops had moved. I'll give one more example. Gamification of all the schemes that we did. Like any other retailer, we used to have these scratch cards and spin wheels and all that. And 2 years ago, we moved that onto the iPad. And it was fun. The customers came and never done a spin wheel on an iPad. But now, post-COVID, the iPad is no longer relevant because you can't clean it every time. So now that's being integrated with the customer on her phone, can spin a wheel or scratch a card, which gets integrated into my computer system at the store, which gets integrated into our billing points. All that is now working through. So I think suddenly all of us getting used to something is very interesting and doing it across, whether my valet doing it or my support team doing it or the qualified technician doing it, the store manager. And I think that is a big accelerator, the shift that we were already on. That's what helped us.
So Himanshu, very quick, thanks, Bhupesh. So a very quick take on it. I mean, I guess there are two aspects to it. One is to handle it. One is top-down aspect, wherein the idea is to involve the L&D team and you cross-train, because this is also a time wherein certain set of people with certain skill set are fairly busy, while there would be certain set of people with a different skill set. Owing to the nature of business, the way business is conducted, wouldn't be as busy, and that's when you put together the process in terms of cross-training them. That's one. But the other thought is also a very function-driven approach, and coming from IT, I mean that there is always a skill gap when it comes to IT, and so effectively, in that case, what has worked for us is take out small areas and probably and look at and basically cross-train people, take baby steps, cross-train people, and it's more of a co-learning. Wherein many of the things, many of the technologies, many of the as you said, the back-end systems, they're built over generations. The idea is to how do you reverse engineer it, how do you train that person at the same time, and you build a process around it. It's a continuous process. It's not built over a week. It's not built over 2 weeks. It's not built over. So effectively, it's a reverse engineering. So wherein and that's very function driven. Wherein cross train them at the same time. You also discover aspects during this entire journey of cross training, and both put together, I guess brings dividends.
Interesting.
Himanshu, would just like to add one line to it.
Sure.
I don't see there was a major skill set gap, but I have definitely seen there is a major mindset change which has happened. It's not about digital, offline, online. Digital is a way of selling. Digital is not a different channel. And if we can take help of digital, of online, it's like the brick and clicks, the boundaries have gone now, and that mindset change has happened across the team. And that was a big change which I saw post-COVID, which happened in our organization.
Interesting. Skill set versus mindset. Sorry.
Himanshu,
Yes, please.
There's one part that I feel that has really kind of taken a leap is the listening to the customer. And from a B2C company retail point of view, anyways, the front end always listen to the customer, right? Because that's their core job, right? But for that listening does not really translate it to all the way to the corporate, right? At least various levels, right? So this has actually enabled, this was like resetting our agenda where the understanding and how the consumer behavior is evolving in a month on month became a very critical part of how the business decisions were taken. So I think and that's going to be very, very critical aspect even going forward. So I think that's something that really changed at the back.
Interesting. That actually, let me take the first audience question. In this, I'm just reading it out. In this crucial time, what strategic steps should be taken by offline stores to increase footfall for upcoming festive season? So maybe anybody who wants to take this one. What is it that you can do to increase your footfalls in the stores?
Can I take that one?
Yep.
So please go ahead.
Thanks. See, there is obviously a concern on footfall, and as a single retailer, it's only that much what we can do in terms of getting all the people who are not coming back to our stores. But I think the most important thing which we feel we have to do is making sure that people realize how safe our stores are. And there are a lot of steps which we have taken on that front. And we are communicating those steps to the customer through offline, online channels, digital channels, so that they do come back and experience the safety net which we have kind of made for them. Because, otherwise, online cannot compensate for the entire loss of sales in the offline space. So safety is the buzzword for me.
For us in the grocery, what we're realizing, there is something called a fear of health, of course, exists, but there's a fear of loss of income, and hence we are seeing people are down trading, people are looking at more value offering and stuff like that. So our assortment for unlike previous years where we used to add a lot of high fancy categories across the board, right, from gifting to and things like those, we made sure that this time the choice of assortment becomes very, very value oriented, right, and more functional part, so that we can also kind of address that need. So that's the first thing that we're doing, and it's happening across the categories, which works in this season. The second part that we're doing is to kind of enabling big time the convenience, because proximity retail is really very, very up in the mind of a customer. So we're figuring out how do we ensure that even when the order is placed in the store, can we ship the order to a family's, a friends and stuff, where you want to, let's say, do a Diwali gifting and things like those. So we're playing on both sides. One, we're ensuring that the value is taken care, and at the same time the convenience is offered. So these are the two ways that strategically we are solving for a customer.
Linked to that is a question. Anybody who wants to take that actually was curious to know. Is your media mix going to change dramatically this year, festive, compared to the last year or previous years? Are you going to change your media mix for festive significantly this year, or is it going to be more or less a mirror of what was done in the past?
It's already changed for us. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Lovely.
So it's completely tilted. So and right now, of course, the targeted media is one of the core media mix for us, right, from digital to the CRM, and that contributes about 55-60% of our media mix now, versus the traditional media. So certainly there will be a definite focus on target media through Facebook advertising or through CRM campaigns and stuff like that, than using a traditional media.
Anyone else has a take on what you're going to do? Is it going to be similar or quite dissimilar? Any changes, big changes being made?
No, I think the only addition to it would be, I completely agree with Lovedeep that it will be mostly primarily digital, and the only thing is last 2-3 months we also saw a lot of offer promos. So we will definitely make sure our marketing spends we target to getting the full price business back and not push too much of offer promos to the consumer. I think it's time we start thinking about the full price business and put dollars there.
On that happy note of looking forward to the full price business during festive, as they say in Hindi, aapke muh mein ghee shakkar, we shall close this session and